My husband offered me to another man over dessert. He did it in Portuguese because he thought I only knew enough to order coffee. I let him finish. Then I excused myself, walked into the women's restroom, and called the one person whose signature was worth $16 million. By the time I returned to the table, my husband was still smiling. He had no idea his deal was already dying. My name is Mara Cross. I was 42 years old, and I had been married to Ethan for 16 years. The dinner took place in a private room at a luxury hotel in downtown Dallas. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, candles flickered between crystal wine glasses, and Ethan had spent 2 weeks rehearsing every detail. The restaurant, the wine, the seating arrangement, even my dress. 3 days earlier, he had placed a cream-colored box on our bed. Inside was a dark green dress that cost more than our daughter's first car. For one stupid moment, I thought he had bought it because he wanted me to feel beautiful. Then he said, "Paolo likes sophisticated women. Just don't turn dinner into one of your lectures." I looked up from the dress. What lectures? You know, supply chains, regulations, all the things you used to do. I worked in international compliance for 11 years, and you haven't worked in almost a decade. He smiled as though that settled the difference. Tonight, just be charming. Ethan was vice president of development at Meridian Cold Chain, a company that transported temperature-sensitive medications across the southern United States. The company was preparing to expand into Brazil and Mexico. But expansion required new warehouses, refrigerated trucks, monitoring systems, and regulatory approval. It also required money, a lot of it. Paulo Andrade represented a Brazilian family investment fund, considering a $16 million investment in Meridian. If Paulo approved the deal, Ethan would become president of the new international division. If the deal failed, Ethan's position inside the company would become difficult to defend. He had already spent money the company did not officially have. That was something I did not know yet. At the beginning of dinner, Paulo was polite but cautious. He was in his late 50s, softly spoken, with the tired eyes of a man who had spent his life watching people become dishonest around money. He asked Ethan specific questions. How many temperature excursions occurred during the pilot program? Almost none, Ethan said. Almost less than 1%. Paulo glanced at the report beside his plate. This document says 0.8. That's correct. I looked at Ethan. 6 months earlier, I had seen a draft report on his home office printer. The failure rate had been closer to 6%. At the time, Ethan had grabbed the pages from me and said they were outdated. I had believed him, Paulo continued. Were any shipments rejected by hospitals? A few were delayed, Ethan said. Nothing was lost. And the independent audit, administrative formality. Paulo stopped cutting his steak. Safety audits are not administrative formalities. Ethan laughed lightly. Of course not. I only mean the result is predictable. The conversation moved on, but Paulo's expression did not. By the time dessert arrived, Ethan had refilled my wine 3 times. I had barely touched it. Then he switched to Portuguese. His Portuguese was not perfect, but it was good enough. Meridian had sent him to Sao Paulo repeatedly over the previous 2 years. He leaned closer to Paulo and lowered his voice. She's prettier after 2 glasses. Paulo's expression tightened. Ethan continued. If you want company after dinner, she won't cause trouble. For a moment, I wondered whether I had misunderstood him. Then he smiled and added, Give me your approval tonight, and I'll make sure she understands what's expected. Paulo placed his spoon beside his plate. I did not ask you for your wife. I know how these things work. No, Paulo said. You know how you work. Ethan gave a quiet laugh. Relax. Mara has always known how to support my career. I did not throw my wine. I did not slap him. I did not ask him whether 16 years of marriage had really brought us to this. Instead, I smiled. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." Ethan did not even look at me. Of course. I walked out slowly enough that he would not suspect anything. Inside the restroom, I locked myself in a stall and took out my phone. The contact was still there. Camila Andrade, Paolo's older sister, and the chairwoman of the Family Investment Fund. Before I married Ethan, I had worked for an American logistics firm, expanding into South America. I had lived in Sao Paulo for 3 years and Lisbon for 2. I had not merely learned Portuguese, I had negotiated contracts in it. I had also reviewed a shipping acquisition for the Andrade family 12 years earlier. During that review, I discovered that a local partner was hiding debt through subcontractors. Camila had never forgotten me. Ethan knew I had worked abroad. He simply never cared enough to ask what I had done there. Camila answered on the 4th ring. "Mara, I'm having dinner with Paolo." "I know. I'm upstairs preparing for tomorrow's meeting." That explained why the fund's legal team had been moving through the hotel lobby earlier. I pressed my back against the stall door. "My husband just offered me to your brother in exchange for his approval." The silence on the other end changed. Did Paolo encourage him? No. Paolo refused. Good, but Ethan also said Meridian's safety audit was an administrative formality. He told Paolo the results could be handled after the money transferred. Camila's voice became colder. "Go back to the table." "What?" "Do not confront Ethan. Keep your phone connected. Put it in your purse and let me listen." I returned less than 3 minutes later. Ethan glanced at me. "You okay?" "Just a little warm." He smiled satisfied. Then he went back to Portuguese. "I told you, she doesn't understand any of this." Paolo said, "Stop talking about your wife." Ethan ignored him. "Mara spent a few years overseas, but she handled paperwork. She was never involved in real negotiations." My hand tightened around my water glass. That was how Ethan had rewritten my life. Not with one dramatic lie, but with hundreds of small reductions. My career became paperwork. My sacrifice became dependence. My silence became stupidity. Paolo pushed his chair back slightly. "I am not discussing this deal further tonight." Ethan leaned toward him. "Everyone has a weakness. Mine happens to be sitting beside me." The private room door opened. Camila Andrade walked in with 2 attorneys behind her. Ethan's face changed so quickly that I almost felt embarrassed for him. Almost. Camila sat beside Paolo. In Portuguese, she said, "Please continue, Ethan. I would like to hear more about Mara's role in securing our investment." Ethan swallowed. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Which part?" "The conversation was informal. You said the safety audit could be dealt with after the transfer. I said the remaining documentation could be completed after the transfer. That is not what I heard." Ethan gave a nervous smile. Portuguese carries nuances that don't always translate cleanly. That was when I spoke. In fluent Portuguese. There was no nuance. "You said the audit was a formality. You said the money only needed to arrive before anyone looked too closely." Ethan stared at me, not angry yet. First came confusion, then calculation, then fear. "You speak Portuguese?" "I negotiated pharmaceutical transport contracts in Brazil before Sophie was born." "You told me you worked in operations." "I did." "You never asked what that meant." Camila closed the folder in front of her. "The investment is suspended for 72 hours, pending an independent review." Ethan tried to speak. Camila raised one hand. "If the records are clean, the deal can continue. If they are not, you have much larger problems than tonight's conversation." The drive home was silent for almost 10 minutes. Then Ethan exploded. You humiliated me. I watched the highway lights pass across the windshield. What humiliated you? What you said, or the fact that I understood it? It was a negotiation tactic. You offered your wife to a stranger. I never intended anything to happen. You only wanted him to believe it could. This is $16 million, Mara. Stop acting like a child. I turned toward him. Did you change the pilot program numbers? His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Don't start pretending you understand my company. I understand cold chain compliance. You used to. There it was again. Used to. The phrase he relied on whenever my knowledge became inconvenient. At home, Ethan softened his voice. If the deal collapses, we could lose everything. What does that mean? The company could cut my position. Sophie's college fund could disappear. The house. The house is almost paid off. He looked away. That was the moment I knew he was hiding more. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom and checked my credit report. I found 2 business loans, $940,000 combined. Both were connected to a company called Cross Temperature Consulting. Both listed me as the personal guarantor. I had never heard of the company. I had never applied for the loans. I had never signed anything. For several minutes, I could not breathe properly. I had spent the evening believing Ethan's greatest betrayal was offering me to another man. But he had already used my identity to build a financial escape route. If the Andrade investment arrived, the loans could be repaid before I discovered them. If the deal failed, the debt would remain attached to me. The next morning I made coffee. Ethan watched me from across the kitchen island. Well, I'll speak to Camilla. Relief appeared in his face. But I need to know what you want me to say. He relaxed immediately. Tell her you misunderstood. Tell her you were emotional because I had been working too much. And the safety audit. Tell her you have no knowledge of Meridian's internal process. That part is true. Exactly. He stepped closer and touched my shoulder. We can fix this. I smiled. I want to protect the family. He heard loyalty. I meant evidence. The moment Ethan left, I called Tessa Morgan, an attorney I had known before my career disappeared beneath marriage, motherhood, and Ethan's ambition. Tessa handled financial fraud. When I finished explaining, she said, "Freeze your credit, change every password, do not confront him about the loans, and do not sign anything he brings home. I need proof. You need protection first." By noon, I was sitting in her office. The company records were worse than I expected. Cross Temperature Consulting had been registered 18 months earlier using my name, my social security number, and a digital copy of my signature. The registration email belonged to Ethan. The company had received consulting payments from Meridian, payments that appeared to be connected to the pilot program. Tessa looked at me across the table. He didn't only borrow money in your name. He used your identity as a wall between himself and the missing funds. That evening, Ethan came home with Meridian's junior attorney, Jordan Hale. Jordan was young, careful, and visibly uncomfortable. He placed a document in front of me. It stated that I had founded Cross Temperature Consulting, approved the loans, advised Meridian on compliance, and reviewed the pilot program's safety data. It also stated that my comments at dinner had resulted from personal stress and excessive alcohol consumption. I looked at Ethan. You want me to say I was drunk? I want you to stop turning one awkward conversation into a corporate crisis. Jordan clicked his pen. Mrs. Cross, this document would clarify your role. My role in a company I've never heard of. Ethan's eyes hardened. We have discussed the company. When? Many times. Give me one date. He did not answer. I picked up the document. I need my glasses. In the bedroom, I photographed every page and sent them to Tessa. When I returned, I placed the unsigned document on the table. I want independent legal advice. Ethan's jaw tightened. Jordan stopped clicking his pen. That is your right, he said. Ethan stared at him. Jordan looked down. Buried in the document was the name of Meridian's former quality director, Leah Kim. I remembered Ethan mentioning her several months earlier. According to him, Leah had suffered a breakdown and resigned during the pilot program. Tessa located her the next day. Leah initially refused to meet us. Then I sent her one message. Ethan used my name to approve the data you refused to approve. She called within 20 minutes. We met at a coffee shop outside Fort Worth. Leah looked exhausted. The failure rate wasn't 0.8%, she said. It was 5.7. What failed? Temperature monitoring units. Several stopped reporting for hours. 2 shipments exceeded the safe range. Were the medications delivered? One shipment was destroyed. The other was returned before reaching patients. Why isn't that in the final report? Ethan ordered me to classify both incidents as transportation delays. And when you refused, he found a documentation mistake from 3 years earlier and threatened to report me for falsifying records. Did you falsify anything? No, I corrected the mistake before submission. But he said the accusation alone would end my career. Leah had copied the original testing logs before leaving. She also had emails. In one, Ethan wrote, "The Andrade money clears the bridge loans. Once the expansion is funded, we replace the monitors, and nobody needs to revisit the pilot." Another email directed Jordan to attach my name to the consulting company. Leah lowered her voice. He said a stay-at-home wife was the perfect compliance officer. My stomach turned. Why? Because if regulators came looking, you would appear responsible. And he assumed you wouldn't understand the documents. That night, Ethan stood in the bedroom doorway while I folded laundry. Where were you today? Shopping. For 4 hours, I stopped for coffee. He picked up my phone. I had already disabled location sharing. What are you doing? I asked. Making sure you're not being manipulated by Camila. You're checking my phone to protect me? Yes, he handed it back. Everything I do is to protect this family. I held his gaze. Then you have nothing to worry about. For the first time, he did not look convinced. The next morning, he texted me. We need to resolve this today. Sign the statement and I can keep our life intact. Tessa read the message. He's scared. I want him to admit it. Then let him believe you're scared too. We arranged a meeting in a rented conference suite. Tessa confirmed how the conversation could legally be recorded and placed a clear recording notice near the entrance. I texted Ethan I'm ready to sign, but I need to understand what happens to me if the Andrade deal fails. He answered almost immediately. At the meeting, I allowed my hands to shake. What happens to the house? Nothing if you cooperate. And the loans? They get paid when the investment closes. So you did use the investment to cover them. Ethan leaned back. Mara, this is normal business financing. Why are they in my name? Your credit was cleaner. Why didn't you ask me? You would have panicked. In my signature? You've signed hundreds of documents for me. That isn't an answer. His patience began to break. I signed on your behalf because we are married and cross-temperature consulting. A legal structure, registered under my name. To protect the family. From what? He leaned forward. From people who don't understand how business actually works. People like me. Yes, Mara, people like you. I lowered my eyes. And the dinner. He sighed. I needed Paulo to understand that I was committed. You offered me to prove commitment. I needed him to believe I would do anything to close the deal, including giving him your wife. Nothing would have happened, but you needed him to think it could. Ethan hit the table with his palm. Stop turning this into a moral drama. $16 million was on that table. The room became still. I waited. Then I asked, "What about the failed temperature monitors?" His face changed. "Who told you about that?" So there were failures, minor ones. The report says 0.8%. The original number would have scared investors. What was the original number? He stood. I'm done with this conversation. I did not move. Was it 5.7? He stared at me. That was all the answer I needed. Then he saw the recording notice near the door. He looked at me slowly. What did you do? You said nothing was wrong. Give me your phone. No. He stepped toward me. The door opened. Tessa walked in with building security. You need to leave, she said. Ethan pointed at me. She is destroying our daughter's future. I stood. You placed our daughter's future behind almost $1 million of debt, carrying my forged signature. His face twisted. Nobody at Meridian will believe you. Tessa held up a folder. This is not only her testimony. The Andrade signing ceremony remained scheduled for the following morning. Ethan believed that was good news. He texted me before leaving the house. After the deal closes, we'll decide whether this marriage can be saved. I did not reply. The ceremony took place in Meridian's executive boardroom. The company president sat at the head of the table. Camila and Paulo Andrade sat across from him. Lawyers, bank representatives, and Meridian executives filled the remaining seats. Ethan arrived wearing the navy suit he reserved for victories. He presented expansion forecasts, employment projections, and speeches about delivering life-saving medications safely across borders. When he finished, Camila opened a folder. Before we sign, we need confirmation regarding cross-temperature consulting. Ethan smiled. My wife's consulting company. Does your wife manage it? She founded it. Did she review Meridian's safety data? Yes. Did she personally authorize the bridge loans? Yes. The door opened. I walked in with Tessa and Leah. Ethan's smile disappeared. I placed my hands on the back of an empty chair. I did not establish cross-temperature consulting. I did not review Meridian's pilot data. I did not authorize any loans. Ethan recovered quickly. This is a marital dispute. Tessa distributed the documents. Company registration records tied to Ethan's email. Digital signature files created on his work computer. Loan applications I had never seen. Payments from Meridian into a company registered under my identity. Ethan turned toward Jordan. You prepared the filings. Jordan went pale. I prepared drafts based on the information you gave me. You knew Mara was involved. I never met her until 2 nights ago. Then Leah stepped forward. She explained the temperature failures, the altered classification, the threat against her career. Ethan interrupted. She was terminated for misconduct. I resigned, Leah said. You signed a non-disclosure agreement. That agreement does not require me to conceal fraud. She placed the original testing logs on the table. The company president compared them with the investor report. Why are these numbers different? Ethan pointed toward Leah. She changed them after leaving. Camila nodded to Tessa. The recording from our conference room meeting began to play. Ethan's voice filled the boardroom. The original number would have scared investors. Then, I signed on your behalf because we are married. Then, $16 million was on that table. Finally, I needed Paulo to believe I would do anything to close the deal. No one moved when the recording ended. Paulo looked directly at Ethan. For the record, I rejected your suggestion immediately. Your wife was never part of any agreement. Camila closed the investment folder. Andrade Capital is withdrawing from the transaction. We are also forwarding these records to the bank and the appropriate regulatory authorities. Ethan's composure finally broke. You don't understand. If you walk away, Meridian could collapse. The company president stared at him. You used falsified safety data to secure financing. I was buying time. You used your wife's identity. I was protecting the company. You exposed patients, employees, investors, and your own family. Ethan turned toward me. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. I said nothing. Mara, tell them. You told everyone I didn't understand business. His breathing became uneven. This is not the time. You told Paolo I would obey you. Stop. You said no one would believe a woman who had been out of the workforce for 9 years. His face went still. I never said that. Leah opened one final audio file. Ethan's voice came through the speakers. If Mara ever asks questions, tell her she already signed. Nobody is going to believe a housewife over an executive. The company president stood. Your access is revoked, effective immediately. Security entered. Ethan looked around the room, searching for someone he could still control. Jordan avoided his eyes. Leah did not move. Paolo looked disgusted. Camilla looked finished with him. Then Ethan looked at me. After everything I gave you, this is how you repay me? I stepped closer. You didn't give me security. You put your crimes in my name and called it marriage. Security escorted him from the room. That afternoon, I filed for divorce and requested temporary orders, preventing Ethan from transferring assets or contacting me outside our attorneys. The legal consequences were not instant. Real justice rarely arrives with dramatic music. The banks opened fraud investigations. Meridian reported the altered safety data. Cross-temperature consulting was frozen. A forensic review confirmed that my signatures had been copied from old mortgage documents. Jordan cooperated with investigators. Leah's professional record was cleared. Ethan was fired. Several months later, criminal charges were still pending. My daughter Sophie was 16. Ethan told her I had destroyed the family because I was angry about one stupid comment at dinner. I did not force her to choose between us. I showed her enough of the evidence to understand one thing. This was never about a comment, I told her. It was about what your father believed he had the right to do after the comment. Sophie cried. Then she asked, Did he really think you couldn't understand him? Yes. But you speak Portuguese. Very well. For the first time in weeks, she almost smiled. That was a pretty big mistake. It was. I sold the house after the divorce settlement. I moved into a smaller place near Sophie's school. There were no marble counters, no oversized dining room, no office Ethan could lock behind him. But every document in that house carried my real signature. Every account belonged to me. Every room felt honest. Camilla later introduced me to a pharmaceutical logistics company seeking a compliance director. I did not receive the job because she felt sorry for me. I completed 3 interviews, passed a technical assessment, and competed against candidates whose careers had not been interrupted for 9 years. I earned it. 6 months later, Ethan requested a meeting through our attorneys. He looked older, not wiser, just smaller. I need you to help me, he said. With what? If you tell investigators I believed I had permission to sign for you, it could change everything. You want me to lie. I want you to remember we were a family. We were a family when you forged my signature. His eyes hardened. You always thought you were smarter than me. No, I spent years believing you were better than this. He looked away. Did you ever love me? I loved the man who promised we were a team. And now I know I was never your partner. I was your insurance policy. I signed the final divorce papers and stood. Our marriage had not ended in that conference room. It had not ended when the board fired him. It had not even ended when I found almost $1 million of debt in my name. It ended at a dinner table in Dallas. My husband leaned toward another man and spoke in a language he believed would hide the truth from me. He thought my silence meant I was confused. It did not. I was listening. And sometimes the most dangerous moment for a liar is not when a woman starts shouting. It is when she becomes completely quiet and finally believes what she heard.